We're going to wrap up chapter 4 with just a couple of little things from objective 3 and objective 6. So first of all, as we look at using activity-based costing to make management decisions, remember we're using these cost of our products, the cost of our services, the cost of our jobs in order to make pricing decisions. As we talked about at the end of objective 2, we need to know the cost so that we can set the correct selling price. We need to know that product mix. This is referring again to that, for those of us that have taken economics, that production possibilities curve. How many tablet computers do we want to sell versus how many premium computers do we want to sell? Where do we want to shift along that production possibilities curve to maximize profit? And then also looking at it from a cost management decision. So if we've used activity-based costing, we've identified our 3 activities and we say, okay, we really need to save money. $100,000 is too much to be spending on overhead. Where can I cut? Well, if we've identified it on the basis of activity, we can start looking at our activities then. Maybe we say, you know what, spending $60,000 on testing, maybe we can reduce that and save some money there. So when we've broken it down by activity, we're better able to make those cost decisions. Now, with that in mind, we're going to look at the 4 different types of quality cost, because their quality does have a cost and we want to produce a quality product or provide a quality service. And so we need to be aware of what these quality costs are and keep this in mind as we're making decisions of where can we save money and where is it not prudent for us to cut back and save money. So the goal of our quality systems are to improve performance, to improve customer satisfaction, and by doing those 2 things, we should also be increasing profits. So it's real easy to go in and say, for example, hey, $60,000 is too much to spend on testing, let's cut that. But if that leads to a poor product with unhappy customers and a lot of returns and lawsuits and things like that, then we didn't really save any money. So we need to keep these quality costs in mind and really examine them as we're making these decisions. So there's 4 types of quality costs. We'll talk about them here and then look at examples on the next slide. So the first one is prevention. This is the money that we spend to avoid having a mistake, to avoid having a failure, if you will, to avoid having a poor quality product. So this could be things like training our employees how to properly do their job to make sure they don't skip over steps. It could be things like making sure that our equipment is properly repaired and maintained so that it's less likely to break down. It could be things like testing inputs as they come in. So one of the things that I used to do when we were in classroom is I have a video from a drug company called Perrigo. They're a real pharmaceutical company. And this is a video that they have prepared for really their clients to kind of get them to be confident in the prescription drugs that Perrigo is producing. And one of the things they talk about how is that every raw material they buy, they test, they sample it and test it. And then every step of the way in production, they're testing again to make sure that there were no mistakes. Now, they're a prescription drug company, so there's large complications and implications if they do make a mistake, and certainly if the inputs aren't good and it ends up harming someone, then that's very, very bad. So they spend a lot of money on prevention. Appraisal cost, you'll also hear this called testing. This is testing our product. So the various tests that we run across the way, to inspection cost, you'll hear this called, to try to see if we've made a mistake. So those are the various things that we do. Now, if the appraisal finds a mistake, then we have an internal failure cost. So internal failure is when we, the company, find our own mistake. And so this cost is either we have to throw the product away and start over and we have that loss, or we have to try to fix it. But either way, we're going to lose some money there. Now, if the mistake gets past us, so our appraisal doesn't catch a mistake, our prevention doesn't prevent the mistake, and the customer finds the mistake, then we have an external failure cost. So external failure is the customer has found the mistake, and this is the most expensive cost for us. So this is a customer return where we have to replace it. This is a warranty cost. This could be litigation and lawsuits if we get sued. This is lost future sales because now you have an unhappy customer who's not going to buy your product again and who's potentially going to tell all of their friends and their social media not to buy your product. This is very, very expensive. So we want to avoid the external cost at all, if at all possible. We would much rather spend our money back here on prevention and appraisal than to have to spend the money on that external failure. So again, some examples. We talked about some of these as we went through. But keep these in mind. There's a couple of homework questions, there's a couple of test questions, and of course, in real life, we need to think about it's very tempting to say, hey, I'm going to save money by cutting some of these costs in this prevention and appraisal category. But what a lot of times we find is that we end up having much higher cost over here in this external failure category, and that really doesn't end up saving us money in the long run.